Welcome to the Elixir podcast, where we ask people from all walks of life and from around the world what their favourite poem is and why it's important to them, why or how it speaks to their heart. You can find links to the poems on the podcast listing and on my website, helenwing.com. Welcome to another episode of the Elixir podcast, which asks people around the world what their favourite poem is, and we ask them to read it, and we ask them to tell us why they like it. Today we're talking to Bryn, who is talking to us from Colchester in Essex in the UK. Hello, Bryn.
Hi.
So, Bryn,
Hi, Helen.
Tell us what your poem is, and then would you like to read it to us?
Yeah, I've chosen The Masque of Anarchy by Percy Shelley, and no doubt we'll speak about it shortly about why it's so important to me, but first I'll read it. The Masque of Anarchy. Stand ye calm and resolute, like a forest close and mute, with folded arms and looks which are weapons of unvanquished war. And if then the tyrants dare, let them ride among you there. Slash and stab and maim and hew, what they like, that let them do. With folded arms and steady eyes, and little fear and less surprise. Look upon them as they slay, till their rage is died away. Then they will return with shame to the place from which they came. And the blood thus shed will speak in hot blushes on their cheek. Rise like lions after slumber, in unvanquishable number. Shake your chains to earth like dew, which in sleep had fallen on you. Ye are many, and they are few.
Wow, Bryn, that's incredibly powerful. Now, you've clearly chosen something that's it's not just a personal thing for you. This is something that you think speaks for you as part of a community. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I think poetry should speak for the people. Before I chose this particular poem, I thought about what were my options, and I thought of Dylan Thomas, that my granddad, Ben Jones, used to read to me. And then I thought of John Cooper Clarke, who I saw as a teenager in Manchester, and Benjamin Zephaniah, who I read to my children. I think people write poetry in the most extraordinary circumstances. I thought of Bobby Sands, the Republican MP, who even wrote poetry in the H-block prisons, where he died as a hunger striker under Thatcher's government in 1981. So poetry for me must inspire the people and speak to what they feel. And returning to Percy Shelley and the poem I've chosen, he wrote this poem in the aftermath of the Peterloo massacre in Manchester in 1819. So he's a dead poet, where the protesters were protesting for the vote, and they were massacred by the yeomanry. That's effectively British saber-waving soldiers. Hundreds of them were mown down. There's a fantastic film came out a few years ago on the anniversary in 2019. And the power of the poem to me is demonstrated by the fact that the Chinese students recited it in Tiananmen Square. And then again in Tahrir Square in Egypt, the young people recited it there. Even in India, Gandhi cited Shelley because one of its themes is about people standing up without violence against a violent oppressor.
Resisting in a peaceful fashion.
Well, I suppose the
exactly
people in Peterloo
yeah.
didn't have much choice. There were people demonstrating for democracy with banners. There was families there was men, there was women. And then the yeomanry came in, mounted on horses, swinging sabres, killing hundreds of them. So what the poem's talking about is, we are many, they are few. Shelley's trying to capture that in spite of the fact that they've been massacred, they have a power because they are the many. And it's picked up again by the poll tax campaigners in 1990, when, do you remember, there was the what was called the riot in Trafalgar Square.
Oh, I was there.
Yeah, you probably weren't reciting poetry at that point. If you were like me, you were hiding and running from riot police, wielding clubs in a slightly not quite Peterloo, but it felt bloody scary, didn't it? I ended up stuck up some scaffolding, hiding from the riot police.
Oh, well.
And most recently, which is probably why, if I'm honest, it's in my mind so much. It was taken up by Jeremy Corbyn when he was the leader of the Labour Party on the eve of the general election in 2017, when he unexpectedly robbed Theresa May of her majority. The last thing that he said in his eve of election rally in his home constituency in Islington North, he spoke in the town hall, and he used the last verse of the poem I've just read as his last public statement before he faced the electorate. And despite what everybody thought was going to happen, robbed Theresa May of her majority and came within a hair's breadth of beating the Tory government. He loves Shelley. And I don't know Jeremy, but I've got a mutual friend from Islington, a woman called Liz Davis, who knows him very well. And he actually rang her up when she was driving to her mother's house from a train on the way to Glasgow, when he famously spoke at Glastonbury, to decide which quote to use. And apparently they talked about a number of poems, but in the end, he chose to use the final verse of the Masque of Anarchy in the poem that I've just raised. And I think the final verse conveys the concept that it's not leaders such as Jeremy Corbyn, or for that matter, any leader who matters. It's the people. And for Jeremy, it was the people in front of him at Glastonbury that had robbed Theresa May of her majority. So perhaps we should repurpose Shelley's last line to say, poetry is for the many and not the few.
Yeah, I thoroughly agree with you. That's excellent. So, Bryn, now that we have your context, and it's an amazing context, isn't it? Because this is a poem that has gone truly global and has stood the test of time from the beginning of the 19th century to now. And as you say, has been used in so many different protests over the world. I wonder, could you finish for us by reading that last verse for us, because it's so evocative?
Yeah, of course. And just before I do, it's worth noticing that Jeremy Corbyn's slogan in the 2017 general election became "For the many, not the few," taken from a poem. So I don't know as many poets have been cited in a party's general election slogan, but Shelley managed it. Anyway, here's the final verse. Rise like lions after slumber, in unvanquishable number. Shake your change to earth like dew, which in sleep had fallen on you. Ye are many, they are few.
Thank you for listening to the Elixir podcast. My name is Helen Wing, and you can find more information about the poems that we talk about on my website at helenwing.com. The podcast is produced by Tom Platts at Sound Sapien. Tom also creates each episode's original music. To find out more, go to soundsapien.com.